our top focus this hour, social media platform TikTok has been slapped with a whopping 350 million euros fine for failing to protect children's privacy and breaching Europe's data privacy rules. Now, these are amongst the toughest in the world, and the allegations against TikTok are that accounts of teens were made public by default, and this allowed anyone to view and comment on their videos. Now, those default settings also posed a risk to children under 13 who gained access to the platform, even though they are not allowed to do so. Another TikTok feature called family pairing that allows adults to manage children's account was also not strict enough. Now, the feature was also criticized for not making a distinction between parents and guardians. Meanwhile, TikTok is not backing down. It has hit back saying that the criticism is not relevant because the reforms introduced in early 2021, months before the investigation even began. It has also raised questions over the level of the fine.
Well, yes, the Islands Data Protection Commission, the DPC, has announced a $367 million fine on TikTok for how the company processes data of children. The fine follows an investigation by the DPC that was announced in 2021, which was to do with TikTok's compliance with the GDPR laws. Now, it focuses on three key TikTok features, one being that TikTok set children's accounts to public by default when they signed up on the platform. And so that led to all the videos posted by them to be publicly viewable. The second being the family pairing, which is a feature that they had introduced in 2020, which would allow a separate adult account, preferably their guardian or parent, who could then handle settings of the child's TikTok account. But the company failed to verify whether the account actually belonged to the child's parent. It could be any adult, and that adult user had the power to change settings such as open DMs, open contacts, share information of the child. The third being that children who were below 13 were essentially not allowed to be on the platform, but TikTok failed to ensure that age verification was done properly. Now, this is not the first time that the DPC has fined a social media company. Before this, Meta was also fined a $400 million fine because they allowed children or younger people to create business profiles on Instagram, which would make their contact information and other, essentially privacy features public. So this is why TikTok has been fined a whopping over $370 million in fine.
Joining us on the broadcast to discuss more on this is cybersecurity expert Kanish Gaur. Mr. Gaur, first of all, thanks a lot for taking out your time for this particular discussion, which is, of course, very important given the fact that this is young teen adults and children that we're talking about. Now, TikTok is a repeat offender, and that's a fact. Now, TikTok, it's not just the first time that TikTok has been slapped with a fine like that. In fact, UK data watchdog earlier fined £12.7 million for illegally processing the data of 1.4 million children. EU also fined TikTok 379 million earlier as well. So TikTok again and again has been putting the data and the safety of young adults and minors at risk.
Absolutely, Ashish. We have seen that TikTok has been doing this mischief for a long time, and that's the reason they have been banned in certain countries, including India. The way they collect metadata of users and then they misuse it for advertising or sharing it with third parties has been a concern for a very long time. Now, as per the EU GDPR, you have to obtain consent from users. Now, this is a very sensitive subject because this is children, and it also collects back to their parents or guardian. TikTok has not clearly defined how the data would be collated. They have not obtained consent from the parents, and they have mixed the category of your parents and guardians. Now, these are like serious allegations, and TikTok, just can't get away with saying that, okay, the investigation started after a long time when the changes were done. So the issues with respect to family pairing, I don't think so. TikTok really clearly followed them. Allowing adults to enable direct access to children's data between 16 to 17 years of age without consent it's a serious offense. The platform has encouraged teenage users to
absolutely,
take
Mr. Gaur. Now, the
setting.
discussion here, the main point of concern here is the fact, like TikTok, like any other Chinese company, this particular platform collects a lot of substantial amount of user data, which again can be concerning, especially when it comes to minors. And again, there's no clarity on the data processing, where it happens, how much of it is shared with China. And this is a concern, precisely what the Indian government has had with TikTok. So the fact of the matter is, the data, the private data, sensitive data of young adults being processed by a private firm and there being no clarity about it is also very, very alarming.
No, it is very alarming, and that's why government of India banned TikTok. And we had more Chinese apps which were banned again because they collate so much amount of metadata. So if you download TikTok and even if you don't use it, you will see that data is moving out from your mobile phone via app like TikTok. So privacy and security risk have been very high with TikTok, and TikTok has never given a clear picture. I think this is one fine. There'll be more such fines on TikTok if it doesn't correct the way it has been operating. And this has become a serious risk, not only for children, but this is a risk for any adult which is using this platform as well, and a national security risk as well. And, through the monitoring of children, their information, you're also putting, their parents at risk because this could be as doing surveillance on people without letting them know what kind of data you're collating. There is no consent mechanism they have built in so far. They just collate this information, and we don't know where this data ends up, whether this data remains in EU or is it moves back to China, right? So those are some of the key concerns which the EU the GDPR commissioners have taken into consideration, because this requires data to remain within EU. But I don't think so in the case of TikTok that is happening. Plus, they don't obtain any kind of consent from. They make the
Exactly.
users,
Mr. Gaur, now
the
that
children's
is a
account
very, very
public.
important point that you raised, that we are not really sure of what's happening with the data, where it's going, where it's being processed, who is it being shared with. And this is again why it is very appreciative of the Indian government that has taken proactive steps to ensure that apps like these, which are not very clear on their data practices, are brought to the book. Now, as a concluding remark, we still have a lot of platforms like this in India. It might not be TikTok, it might not be necessarily a company that is associated with the same organization, but there are a lot of platforms that, again, a lot of teenagers and young adults are on. So what would be your advice to young adults, minors, children who are using all of these platforms and are watching right now? What exactly do they need to know, or their guardians or their parents need to know, to ensure that their sensitive data, private data, is not leaked online?
One of the key aspects is you need to keep your accounts private. If you're not an influencer, you're not a content creator, if you're putting your account public, everyone can access your data, they can use that information, they can have tremendous amount of information about you, and that could be misused against the person. This is what TikTok was doing with the users' account of young children, because the accounts were made private. So keeping your accounts private, using multi-factor authentication is very important. Not sharing your passwords with anyone, including your friends, your family. That is a very, very important, right? If you are going somewhere, don't put a check-in or a check-out. You could be inviting trouble at your home because you're telling the entire world you're not there. There are people who would definitely want to visit your place when nobody's there. So those are key considerations. Then sharing of intimate images, that's also become a big concern. So, sharing intimate images with friends or recording them, that's another aspect, because a lot
Absolutely.
of times these images get public, they get morphed. So those are some of the key accounts which people need to take into consideration. And for safeguarding user privacy, government is also
Absolutely,
looking
Mr.
at
Gaur.
bringing in the Digital India Act now.
Mhm. Absolutely. Mr. Gaur, thanks a lot for sharing all of those details. And of course, being online is important, but being safe online is even more important. And that was Mr. Kanish Gaur, a cybersecurity expert, joining us live. Thanks a lot, Mr. Gaur, for taking out your time for this very important discussion that is something that everyone needs to watch and be aware of in this day and age. Shifting our focus now